Loyola alum, sorry. Migrate is our way of professional development. It is a way for us as assistant coaches and everybody in this room to kind of uplift and build each other, but also it's kind of like what we like to say our assistant head coaches in training. Ways for assistant coaches to get training. So whether or not during the spring last semester we kind of did mock interviews, people talked us through their books. There was also ways for us to just talk to other ADs. And it's big for us because it teaches us how to network, but also like now this year we've also incorporated adding other universities into it. So last month we did UMBC. This week we had New Orleans, Morgan State, and also Loyola. So basically Migrate, I'll say it in another way that I kind of want to make it easy. We want it to be an open, informal space for you to learn and talk to other people. We don't want it to be a real strict space where, hey, you have to sit here, you have to listen to these ADs talk. We want it to be a space where you all can sit here and say, hey, I want to know what you guys do at Morgan State or Loyola, or hey, why are you all successful at Hopkins? How does that work? We want that to be a space. So over the last 2 or 3 weeks, a group of us from all 3 universities have been working together. So I'll introduce myself. I am Rio. I'm assistant football coach here. I'll pass it over to Jack.
I'm Jack Barrett. I'm associate head coach for the men's basketball team, and I've been here at Hopkins for 3 seasons.
I'm Caitlin Cherney. I'm the volleyball assistant coach and also a Loyola alumni, so glad to see Donna here.
I'm Kelsey Goodwin. I'm in my first season as the assistant softball coach at Morgan.
I'm Maggie Rainberg. I am the assistant coach for the men's and women's rowing team, and this is my 5th year there.
Hello everyone, I'm Robert Isaac. I'm the assistant track and field coach at Morgan, 3rd season.
So speaking now that we all introduced ourselves, one of the things we wanted to talk about today was relationships and culture building. Part of it is February, so everybody knows Valentine's Day is the biggest thing. But also as we transition into a new world of athletics, relationships have turned out to be the biggest part of every athletic department. Whether or not you're building relationships with your coworkers, whether or not you're building relationships with your student athletes, whether or not you even just building relationships with people on campus. So we wanted to build that around and also learn from 3 successful athletic directors about how they build culture within their own athletic department, because it starts with them and then it trickles down to each team. So our introduction of our 3 panelists, I believe we will start with Maggie.
I'm going to introduce Donna, the athletic director at Loyola. So Donna's in her 9th year at Loyola as the director of athletics and was promoted to associate vice president and director of athletics in 2024. Since arriving in 2017, she's led the Greyhounds to sustained competitive and academic success, including 13 Patriot League regular season titles, 11 conference tournament championships, and 9 NCAA appearances in men's and women's lacrosse. Under her leadership, Loyola has celebrated a Tuarton Award winner, multiple All-Americans, Scholarship Athletes of the Year, and a record-setting academic performance, including a department GPA over a 3.45. Donna has also overseen significant facilities and strategic growth initiatives, including the opening of the Air Dome at Ridley. We miss the Air Dome right now.
It collapsed about 2 weeks ago.
Major arena renovations, multimedia rights partnerships, and expanded healthcare and corporate sponsorship agreements. Nationally, she's served as the chair of the NCAA Men's Lacrosse Committee and remains active in conference leadership and diversity initiatives. Prior to Loyola, Donna spent 13 years at Stony Brook University, serving as the deputy director of athletics and overseeing a $30 million budget and major capital projects. A former All-Ivy League student athlete at the University of Pennsylvania, an NCAWAA Administrator of the Year honoree. She brings more than 3 decades of leadership experience in Division I athletics.
All right, I'll be introducing Ms. Dina Freeman-Patton. So Dina is in her 4th season as the vice president and athletic director at Morgan State University, where she made history as the first woman in the institution's 155 years to lead the athletic department. She oversees all athletic operations and intramural programs and serves on the president's cabinet. Under her leadership at Morgan, she has experienced significant competitive and academic growth. The Bears earned the 2025 MEAC Top Academic Progress Rate Award for the first time in the school's history, posted a 3.03 department GPA, and saw 91 student athletes achieve a perfect 4.0. Morgan has secured 133 MEAC All-Conference honors, 17 top individual or coaching awards, multiple conference championships in softball, and postseason appearances in women's basketball and men's tennis. The department also expanded opportunities by adding wrestling and acrobatics and tumbling, becoming the first Division I HBCU to sponsor the sport. With nearly 30 years of experience in the collegiate athletic leadership, Dina has held executive roles across Division I and Division II institutions and currently serves on the NCAA Division I FCS Oversight Committee and the Men's NIT Committee. The Baltimore native and former Division I student athlete, she brings both national leadership experience and deep local roots to her role at Morgan State.
I will be introducing Ms. Jennifer Baker, who is Johns Hopkins Associate Vice Provost for Student Affairs and Director of Athletics and Recreation, a role which she's assumed since 2019. In her time as a Blue Jay, we've captured 5 national championships, 66 conference titles, and back-to-back Learfield Directors Cup titles in 2022-23 and 2023-24, marking the most successful stretch in department history. Under her guidance, Johns Hopkins student athletes have earned 16 individual national championships, 130 academic All-America honors, and a school record 81 All-Americans in a single academic year. She also developed the department's strategic plan centered on competitive excellence, student athlete experience, and community building. She also launched our Blue Jays Lead program, which is a leadership development program for student athletes. A Naval Academy graduate and former Navy pilot and engineer, Ms. Baker brings a unique blend of military leadership, Division I athletics administration, and corporate experience to her role at Hopkins.
Okay, perfect. So now that you've met our panelists, kind of the way this is gonna go, we have already sent them their questions, so they'll be prepared to answer those. But some of the questions, it'll be just them answering. There are also some questions that'll be slides where it leads to a table discussion with you after, so you can kind of talk about the answers you hear from them, but you'll also be able to talk about and add your own mix to it. All right, starting with our first question, all of the ADs will be able to answer this. What is your reason why? Kind of the reason behind that is nowadays, like we all want to know why you do things. You all climb the ranks, become vice president, vice provost, ADs. Why? Like, what is your reason why? Why do you support the student athletes? Why do you choose your profession every day? Why do you get up when it's hard? And you get calls from coaches at midnight. So, like, why do you still do it?
Okay, I'll go first. So for me, and this goes back to a mentor of mine probably 10 or 15 years ago when I was first thinking about, I was in grad school and trying to figure out which direction I wanted to go in my life, because as you've heard, I did not start in athletics. And he asked me, he said, have you ever given thought to what your life's purpose is? And it just came out of me. I didn't really think about it. I said to help others be their best. And when I heard myself say it and then reflected on it, I thought, yep, that's it. So sport is the way in which I do that. And I believe very strongly, specifically within sport, every day what brings me to work and gets me excited is the idea that I can help leverage sport to develop leaders, which is very, very important to me, and build community. Both within our department, across campus, and within the broader Baltimore community. So those are the reasons that get me up, but nothing brings me more joy than to see other people be successful after working hard at something, and that's really how it all started.
So when I had this question posed, and we get asked this a lot actually in different things when people are interviewing, what's your why? And so I have two answers. One is personal and one is professional. So from a personal standpoint, when someone asks me that, my why honestly is to make my parents proud, right? So when I do things, I really do think about my parents. I'm fortunate that both of my parents are still alive, and it's always been ingrained in me that they want, a person in their life to be humble, to be thinking about moving forward, to be helping others, to be kind, to be respectful, etc. So that is part of my why as a human being. And certainly, I hope I bring some of those things to my job professionally. From a professional standpoint, my why is absolutely to make sure that there is a positive student-athlete experience, right? I mean, we're athletic directors. I can't influence that directly all the time, but my decision-making and who I hire and how I interact with people is about making sure that the student-athlete experience is a good one. And that comes from me. I was going to be a lawyer
I was not gonna be, I eventually was a coach and then maybe that was not my plan to go into athletics. But I had a phenomenal student athlete experience while I was busy taking my LSATs and all the other stuff, and, had someone as well, point out that maybe this is a road that I should go on. But it is always about the student athlete experience.
It's funny you said something about being a lawyer. I wanted to be a corporate attorney. And so then I did a few internships and stuff, and I was like, oh no, can't do this for the rest of my life. But my why starts from a spiritual standpoint, and the rest leads from there. So figuring out my purpose on this earth, and what I can do to leave value for when I'm no longer here, right? And so to me, that's where it starts, but I know my strengths, right? You gotta know your strengths and weaknesses, so I know how I can do that and what I'm good at. And what I learned at a very early age, here in Baltimore at my high school, is that I was good at helping other people to see where they could be, right? To how they could be successful in life. And that was, at that time, my high school, the men's basketball coach would call me coach, because I'm always fussing at the guys about, okay, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna get there? You need to get your academics right so you go to college, and this is what it's gonna mean for your family. That led to me I came up through the student services and academic support space in athletics. Did the same thing with student athletes, teaching them, showing them how to get from, okay, you're a student athlete, preparing you for the rest of the world. And then that led to coaches, administrators. So it's not just about the student athletes for me, it's just about people. And trying to be able to figure that out and try to help people to get where they want to be. Sometimes it's harder with your own child, because I have a 20-year-old that I'm still working on right now. But that's my why. As an AD, you have to do it a certain way, right? Because you got to manage and all the other things, but it's still inherently my why.
Awesome, thank you. So from the what to the why to the how, okay, here we go. So how are you all building culture in your departments?
Like I said, start this way. So that's the hardest thing to do, in my opinion, but it is the most important thing. What we try to do is have what we call staff retreats and get together. It's kind of like this, where you have professional development, because that's part of my why. You have to develop people, bring them together. But culture is about leading people in the same direction for the same reason and in the same way, which is a little difficult sometimes. So we try to bring people together, whether it be for an event or getting our student athletes together as much as possible. We haven't been able to do that as much recently, but we're trying to get back on track with that. But the biggest way for us is just making sure everybody understands, okay, we're a family, but this is also a job, and understanding the mission of the university and the vision of the university is how you get people on board. But you got to do things like you're doing, which I admire. You getting together as assistant coaches and learning from other people. But I think it also helps your culture at your institutions when you go to things like this, because you bring back ideas, you bring back a feeling of learning to that culture. So that's just some of the things that we try to do. We have some professional development activities for both staff and student athletes, and we try to get us right on the right track, as a family, but also in a winning culture. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I'll throw out, first of all, and I think this is awesome, and it does make me think like, oh, this is something we should think about doing, for folks on our staffs, the broader group, so we'll steal some of this, hopefully. I also think that building culture is, you can either talk about the very specifics, right, that you're purposely, intentionally doing X, Y, and Z, setting this up, setting this forum up, doing X, Y, and Z. But I'd also like to speak about the things that you do that may not seem as tangible, that I think are really important. So like in our staff meetings, we have full staff meetings, I think it's really important from my chair that I'm as honest, open, transparent. I actually say that the truth is, in our positions, I don't always think you can be 100% transparent. I try to call it translucent, right? I think of an ice cube. You can see through it, you know that there's something on the other side, but you may not know everything, about it. And the reason I say that is because transparent means you can see everything on the other side. I don't think it's fair to talk about your salary, or what your performance, review was. So I'm more translucent, enough that you know what's going on in the department and the university. I also think celebrating the humanness of people, right? So talking about, somebody that maybe just got married or had something happen in their life, that it's okay for us to talk about that as human beings and to see each other as human beings, that it's not just about, oh, okay, you had an All-American and you won a big game, but who are we as human beings? Like I like to look at that as part of your culture, as well, and to have empathy, for one another. And so I do think that's part of building your culture, and so I would, add that out there, that is something that, I think is important about building the culture in your department.
I would say, so for me, I'm very left-brained, so know that. So engineer by education. So I tend to think of things in a linear sequence, even though things are not necessarily linear. But with that, I start with the end in mind. And so when I was on the staff before I became the AD. So I became the AD internally. And I remember very clearly before standing up at our very first all-staff meeting once I became the AD, thinking, I know everybody in this department, but they don't know who I'm gonna be in this role. And so I felt like it was really important for me to communicate to everybody how I wanted us to work together, which in my mind were basically the seeds for the culture that I ultimately wanted us to have. So I started with the end in mind, meaning what is it gonna look like when we are operating within the culture that I envision? And then I kind of tried to reverse engineer that back in my ever so linear brain to like, what are the inputs that need to go in to get us there? And in the military, we have a thing called an SOP, a standard operating procedure, and they make things very clear and sequential. And so with that, I thought to myself, what are the most important things we need to do to work together? And I wound up writing down, like, it was just sort of like pre-thinking, there were 6 things that came to mind, and they all start with I, which I always acknowledge makes me feel like a total HR cliche, but I assure you it was coincidental. But they were concepts, not values per se. Culture is your values operationalized, but they were concepts about how I wanted us to work together. Integrity, investment, meaning we're gonna spend all of our dollars and time wisely and resourcefully in advance of our highest goals. Impact, talking about how we impact the lives of others and never undervaluing that. Inspiration is about how we show up inspired to do the work that we do, not necessarily how we inspire others, but how we ourselves are inspired. Innovation, and then inclusion. And so those things form the foundation, and we planted those seeds many years ago, but now we continue to sustain that. And this is the other part of culture I think is really important, is modeling, A, but B, when you see others doing the things that you want them to do, to recognize and celebrate those things. So we try to be pretty intentional about doing that. And I will say all of that has been on the staff side of things, and now we are evolving and introducing a whole set of standards for our athletes as well. And it will be the same kind of model where we will communicate that and then think about how do we recognize and celebrate this when we see it happening. And I think it takes time. That's the other part of culture. I don't think you can walk in and just change it like that. I think you have to be thoughtful and patient and generate momentum.
I like the part you said about celebrating. I think sometimes we don't do enough of that, and especially in the leadership standpoint, because you go on to the next thing, right? And you don't take the time to celebrate the moment, celebrate the successes in the departments, and, over a project that somebody's worked on. I think that we can all, especially me, do a better job at that. But I agree on the celebration. I think people, it helps with acknowledgement, being acknowledged for the work that you do, feeling valued, values is a big part of culture as well.
Great, great. Excuse me. Thank you. If we could, everybody take some time, about 2 minutes, to discuss this topic at your table. Okay, good. Again, the question was, how are you building culture? Okay, how are you building culture? So talk about it at your tables if you could, please.